Joining me now from our Washington bureau is Sue Terry, the managing director for Bauer Group Asia and a former senior North Korea analyst at the CIA. Sue, thank you so much for being with us. We just heard North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho say that the president's comments are a declaration of war. What do you make of those remarks?
Well, this is how North Koreans are taking Mr. Trump's comments, speech at the United Nations. So to be honest, when I first heard Mr. Trump's speech, I knew this was coming. North Koreans have to react because Trump belittled the leader, called him names, calling him a rocket man bent on a suicide mission, and threatened to totally destroy North Korea. So Kim Jong-un then followed up with a very personal statement. And I've been watching North Korea for a very long time. I have never seen a leader speak in a first person, write that statement, putting his name on it. So he's taking it very personally now. And so I don't think North Koreans can back down. He has now tied his legitimacy and credibility, that is Kim Jong-un, to reacting, and so they have to continue with provocations. So I'm afraid we might see another intercontinental ballistic missile test or more provocations are forthcoming.
I want you to break that down a little bit for those people that don't study North Korea as you have throughout your career. You're saying that President Trump's rhetoric forces Kim Jong-un to escalate his rhetoric? Explain why.
Well, yes, absolutely, because Kim Jong-un cannot afford to look domestically as if he's backing down or caving into pressure from the United States. Well, to be fair, North Koreans were always going to complete the nuclear program, perfect their nuclear arsenal, and they were bent on doing this. But this kind of touting Kim Jong-un and kind of really baiting him and name-calling, so now Kim Jong-un is taking this very personally. So he will act very forcefully. So I think this is very counterproductive on our part. I think we can be forceful and press the North Koreans without having to call Kim Jong-un by name and going through, to have this kind of very heightened rhetoric, which is very counterproductive.
Does it preclude this type of rhetoric continuing to come from President Trump? Does it preclude future diplomacy, potential future negotiations with Kim Jong-un?
I think it makes it more difficult, and we're boxing ourselves in, and we're limiting our own options by increasing rhetoric like this because we're putting ourselves out there. North Koreans, meanwhile, will have to continue with their nuclear program. So what are our options? Are we going to really follow through with a military option of striking North Korea when North Korea is already a nuclear power, right? And they have conventional artillery, over 10,000 conventional artillery pieces within 60 seconds of Seoul. Or do we look like a paper tiger by not acting? So I think by talking like this and putting ourselves out there, we limit our own options.
The minister also made what some would call a new threat, that North Korea has the right to shoot down U.S. bombers, even if they are not in North Korea's airspace. And of course, this comes after U.S. bombers flew along the country's coast, not in North Korean airspace over the weekend in a show of force. Is that a direct threat, and do you think there is anything to it?
I think the likelihood of North Korea actually shooting down our bombers, I think, is still unlikely, because I would like to believe that Kim Jong-un is not suicidal, even though he's a barbaric and murderous man and ruthless, but not suicidal. He wants to preserve his regime, and he knows if in an all-out conflict, North Korea will lose, and that means the end of the regime. That said, room for miscalculation or possibility of miscalculation and misunderstanding have increased because of this going back and forth, heightened rhetoric by both sides. So again, I think this is only increasing tension and not productive in terms of resolving the North Korean crisis.
Sue Terry, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me on.